Hey guys, welcome back to the channel. Hope you're having a good one today. I'm Nick and I am back with another review for The People. This time I'm doing 28 Days Later, and this was chosen by Miss Carter. Now Miss Carter is a huge supporter of the channel. She's a really kind-hearted person and yeah, just one of the best subscribers I could ever ask for. So this one's for her and let's get right into it. So 28 Days Later was released in 2002. It stars Cillian Murphy, Naomi Harris, Megan Burns, and was directed by Danny Boyle. So getting right into the basic plot of this film, it's about a man who wakes up in a hospital 28 days after a zombie apocalypse has started. Now, I use the word zombie very loosely in this review because technically they're not zombies. These aren't the dead that are reanimated, trying to eat brains or whatever. These are people infected with the rage virus, and it turns them into homicidal maniacs. Now, this virus outbreak occurred at the very first of the film, where we see these animal activists break into a lab and try to let loose a bunch of monkeys who were infected with the rage virus. They get out, infect the animal activists, which eventually spreads all through London. Now, this infection spreads like wildfire. It's not just a bite. You can get scratched. You can get a little drop of blood in your eye and any of your orifices, and you will be infected within a heartbeat. It literally 5 to 10 seconds, you're a goner. There's no time for a cure or anything. This makes the infected extremely dangerous, and they're really some of the scariest zombies in the genre. I'm sure this film inspired movies like Wreck and all those other fast-running infected that we've got in modern times. It was really groundbreaking at the time what Danny Boyle did, because we've never really seen this type of zombie before. Like, your typical slow-moving zombie is really only effective in hordes or in really small corridors, but just one of these infected is enough to kill you. You're running for your life and you're scared shitless. And right off the bat, when our main character Jim wakes up in the hospital and starts exploring this empty city, the cinematography is just so beautiful. You get these shots of London completely empty, which you never see on any day. It's like having shots of New York completely empty. It's really hard to believe that they were able to manage to get these shots. It's incredible. Like, whether there's multiple streets that they show empty, the main like downtown with the clock and everything in London, all that's empty. And when you hear Cillian Murphy shout out like "hello" and you hear nothing, it sends chills down your spine. Just unfortunately, the whole thing was filmed on one of the cheapest cameras ever. The studio only gave them more money at the very end of the movie to make a proper ending. Once they seen the product, they're like, well, you need a proper ending to this. Here's a bunch of money. And it really shows in like the final scenes of the movie. It becomes this like big budget movie. And as scary as the zombies are in this flick, whether you're talking about their looks, their yellow eyes and shit, and the blood coming out of their mouths, or just the way they're running at you and how intense they are, still the humans are still the worst of all. People do crazy stuff in survival mode and they start killing off one another. No one can be trusted, and that's the reality of an apocalypse. If you're in the future, who are you going to trust, especially when you got all these crazy creatures running around? And it's a common theme in horror, having the humans bigger monsters than the actual monsters themselves. But there's a reason behind that. It's because it works. It especially works for this story with the army and that. And it's true that people can be awful. And throughout this film, they keep getting broadcasts on the radio, hearing that there's a safe place where there's a cure. So that's pretty much the plot of this film, is Jim and a few other survivors he meets up with travel to try to get to this army base or army outpost that they keep announcing on the radio. And that's another thing, deception. The army is supposed to be a sign of protection, you know, but they get there and that's not what happens. And it really flips this whole second half of this movie. Like, at first you're so relieved to see them, but as you get to know them, you realize how terrible of people they are. It's basically like an independent private little military they're running, because they got no outside words or anything, no one giving them orders. You just got this head captain giving orders to his own crew, and they're pretty much breaking all the rules and just doing what they want. Like, the first half of this movie plays out like your typical zombie apocalypse, but with, like I said, really awesome shots of the city being empty, some very scary zombies. But the second half of this flick is completely different, and it's one of my favorites in the genre when they're at the army outpost. That it completely changes the whole film and flips it on its head. And like I was saying, that this virus takes hold of you so quick once you become infected that you have to be prepared to take out your best friends, your family, whoever you're with instantly. Like as soon as they become infected and you realize it, you have to take them out before it's too late, or you're going to risk everybody's lives. It's a real terrifying world that Danny Boyle created here. It was great world building. It feels like this could actually happen. There's a certain amount of realism to it. And just imagine waking up in a hospital during an apocalypse and you come to find out everybody you know is dead, all your loved ones, and having to go to your house to see your parents being dead, and or like I said, witnessing close friends be infected and have to be killed right on the spot. It's so intense and it really hits home. And really, I just love the whole journey our four main characters go on throughout this runtime, trying to get to the army outpost, because they learn a lot about each other. They become a lot closer. You could say they even become family by the end, especially when the main guy Jim is having nightmares and the older guy wakes him up to tell him, hey, you're just having a nightmare, and he's like, thanks, Dad. It's like little things like that. You're like, oh, they're getting so close, which really tears you apart when things happen to them. There's just so many emotional struggles these characters have to deal with in this flick that you feel bad for them, the stuff they have to deal with and overcome. And none of it's done in a Hollywood manner, which I really appreciate. It's a very different approach to the genre. And before I wrap this up, I just want to say I really love the second half when Jim goes all Rambo and like starts messing with the army outposts to try to get his friends out of there. That's such a feel good scene and moment. With the kid being on drugs and just not giving a fuck in there while they're trying to have her escape, and it's just a really well done outro. I just wish it was filmed on a better camera, to be honest. So whether you consider this a zombie flick or not, you have to admit it's one of the better films in the genre, in my opinion anyway. It's scary, it's intense, it's everything I want out of this type of movie. And if I'm going to have to give it a rating, I'm going to rate it a solid 9 out of 10. It's amazing, and you should definitely go check it out. So there you have it. There's my review on 28 Days Later, guys. I hope you enjoyed it, Miss Carter. I will eventually get to 28 weeks later in the future. But until then, thanks for watching, guys.